So remember, guys, when you're talking, hold down your transmit button for a second after you're finished so we don't get clipped sentences.
That's right. I'll at large cheeseburger with a.
Fuck you.
I'm Captain Vinzer Flynn, and you're listening to Shitfaced in Hyperspace. Welcome back to the Bridge of the Blackjack, everyone. Welcome this evening to Cryus, Juice, Vander, Varen, Weewick, and Gung Ho's somewhere down in the mess hall making himself a sandwich or something. He might turn up later.
This is Vander checking in.
Cryus
Juice
is
checking
good.
in.
Varen checking in.
Red 5 standing by.
I puked in my helmet.
Are the vac seals engaged? Have you pulled a phoenix?
Try US. Oh,
God.
Listen, Simba, we're going to throw you off a cliff.
Fuck you all. Love you all.
All right. Okay, we're going to get to the boys. But how about a little warm-up first? A little segment I'm calling What Pisses Me Off About Star Wars.
Shitty fan base.
that is the glaringly obvious one, yes.
And the problem is it's just been recent because I've never heard of this phenomenon like when the original 3 came out or when the prequels came out.
I think the internet is a big play at that.
Yeah, I was just say I'm pretty sure we were just as shitty then, but now it's people have the ability to vent online, and that's all you see.
I say people were pretty hard on the prequels.
Goddamn 20-minute pod race piece of shit.
I think a big difference there, though, is that at least with Phantom Menace coming out in 99, it had been a significant chunk of change since we got our last dose of Star Wars. And even then, there were still a couple of years apart from 99 to 2002 to 2005 in between the releases. And the only thing you had in between to tie yourself over was the original animated Clone Wars series.
Which was awesome.
Yes, Tchaikovsky's Clone Wars was fantastic.
But now, now there's something Star Wars every year.
Or every 6 months.
Or every 6 months between new television series, new high triple budget games, and movies now. It's like there's Star Wars every year. So you can complain about it a bit more. And that's been my take on it, is like I really didn't like Rogue One, but I'm happy to live in a world where I can not like a Star Wars film and tell myself it's okay. There's one in a year, I'll probably like that one.
Did anybody else manage to get through Resistance, the newest animated series?
I have it taped. I watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm waiting to get the energy to do the rest.
I can just accept the fact that it's not meant for me, and I'm cool with that. I just won't watch it.
I managed to slog through all 20 whatever episodes, and you guys have heard me bitch about it. I didn't like it. The main character is obnoxiously annoying. The only time it got really good was towards the end, because the kid is from Hosnian Prime, and they overlap with Starkiller Base doing its thing, and that was the only time it got good, when it got that dark.
The movies in general, the shows in general, there's a huge age gap, generational gap between the original movies and the newer movies. And I think a lot of the complaints, whether or not you liked it or not, and whether or not they were legitimate or not, it's the movies now, the shows now, aren't necessarily made for the same people who grew up with the original trilogy. And even the prequels, there's still a lot of time between even the prequels and, say, the new movies.
Here's my thing with Star Wars, right? George Lucas has stated outright that the series is written to be attractive to to kids, to like 12-year-old boys or girls, people who saw the original trilogy back in the late 70s, early 80s, when they were 12 or 13-year-olds, they expect that it will grow up with them. So like Star Wars now will be geared towards 40 plus year old Star Wars fans. And it's not. It's still meant for 12-year-olds. Still plots that 12-year-old kids can follow. Still moments that 12-year-old kids will go, oh man, that's so cool. Yada, yada, stuff like that. And I just think maybe at this point, Resistance, they tried to aim a little lower than 12-year-old boys. And thus, that's why we don't like it even more.
I am a bitter old man.
Get off my lawn, you fucking Padawans.
Listen there, Fleet Admiral Juice.
Yeah. I'm old and crotchety. Get over it.
Have you had a chance to watch any Discovery yet, Juice?
No, I have not. Will be on my list.
Okay, you keep us posted.
When you decide you want a report from me, I'll plow through it.
Oh, whenever.
Sounds good.
The another thing too with talking about like Cryas, you were saying about the 12-year-olds and that it's totally true. I think another thing is I know myself is as much as I enjoy even the new ones, and I've accepted that it's made for a different generation. I'm okay with that. I also think there's a little bit of burnout with the Skywalkers in general. It's like, that's great. I want to see new people. Because when I was watching Rebels, I loved Rebels and I almost care for the characters more. And I think a lot of it has to do with I love the universe of Star Wars. But there's so much more than just the Skywalkers. And
Yep.
I think people are getting tired of them.
And
So what are you going to think then when they bring out the next trilogy and it's not going to be the Skywalkers at all from what I've read? It's going to be like there are two competing groups of people trying to write a new trilogy.
I am totally looking forward to it because, again, I love the world. I love the video games are a great example. Video games that are based on the movies directly generally are terrible. They're not very good. The games that are built in the world of Star Wars are usually very good because there's like, hey, we have this whole huge universe and you can be a part of it, but you don't have to play Luke or Han or that. We already know their story. We don't really give a shit anymore.
And that, what you're saying right there, Varen, that is almost exactly the approach that Star Wars Galaxies used when it came out and says, write your own story. You're not, Luke Skywalker. You're a third stormtrooper from the left or a rebel pilot no one's ever heard of it. And that made it good because you're bouncing around in that big sandbox universe, but you're doing your own thing. It could be whatever.
Exactly. Even like the original Battlefront games. Or even the new Battlefront games, EA. But it's the same.
I did hear him spit, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
too.
Continue.
But yeah, it's the same thing. Is we love the world, and we obviously want to be a part of that world. But yeah, burnout is no matter how good something is, it can be too much of a good thing. And face it, when we finish off the Skywalker trilogy in December with number 9, that's 9 movies that are directly about the Skywalkers. That's a lot of movies, a lot of hours. I really liked Rogue One. It linked into it, but it was separate. Lucas was great at creating a world and a mythology and getting all of the writers, whether it's Kevin J. Anderson or Stackpole or any of them, and getting them to put in their bits and giving us all these cultures in Star Wars. But he's actually a terrible writer. The stories themselves have not really been that good. They're fun, but he's a really shitty writer.
Oh, he's great with the concept. Then they should never let him do dialogue. When they were doing his America Film Institute award, Harrison Ford said, "George, you can type this shit, but you can't say it."
See, Clone Wars, when it came out, it took me a long time to get into because I hated the animation. I absolutely hated it. I found it ugly, blocky, and it took a while to get into, and especially the first season, it was very childish. It grew on me as the show aged. It felt like it got for a slightly older demographic. It was a little bit easier to follow. I still hated the animation.
I had a hard time liking the Clone Wars unless they actually did stuff with the clones. The only compelling character the whole time was Ahsoka because Anakin's not very likable. Kenobi is an aristocratic asshole. Like, what made me like Rebels way more is because it was like that Rebel crew family aspect, whereas Clone Wars, what remaining sympathetic characters, you know what I mean?
I actually legit today watched a 15-minute video of Obi-Wan sassing people throughout Clone Wars and the sequel trilogy.
He's sassy, I'll give him that. I like old Obi-Wan though, like where he's a little more world weary and shit. But the young one, I don't know, I find him an ass. Okay, here's the thing that really pisses me off about Star Wars. How every planet is only one biological, geographical type.
I mean, Naboo?
Yep. Or Hoth, or Tatooine. You have a desert planet, or an ice planet, or a forest planet, or this. There is no climate. Climate does not exist on any of these planets.
Like, that's what I'm talking about.
Is Naboo.
Well, Naboo's all this sort of swampy wetlands. Like and the thing that really drove it home was Solo, because again, I can never shut up about Star Wars Galaxies. Back there in that game on Corellia, it had these beautiful mountains and these gorgeous coastlines, but Solo made it look like it was just one big, ugly industrial shipyard, and I'm like, there's so much more. Why do they keep doing that? Like, they're just showing this one grungy part of the planet and saying, this is Corellia.
The only way I can almost compare it to when people refer to Canada, and it's Toronto. Everything is Toronto or maybe Montreal.
Or Vancouver.
But it's basically like we have those major cities, and that's what everyone thinks of when they think of the country. They don't think of places like Halifax or Newfoundland necessarily, or either the Northwestern, anywhere else. It's always the cities that we have because that's where most of the culture is from.
That's actually a really good real-life parallel comparison, and that makes perfect sense to me. I like that.
Well, the problem with Tatooine is it has 3 suns and it's perpetual daylight, I think.
Two suns.
2? My bad. My bad. I'm a shitty Star Wars fan.
Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2.
Is that actually it?
Yeah. The only time that they show a planet that has a diverse climate is in the Ewok adventure movies, where they go all over the place and there's forest, there's desert, there's ocean. It's the only one that kind of matches up to the galaxy's equivalent. There's different shit.
And you know what? You can judge me. I actually love those movies. They're great.
No judgment, no judgment. All right, we better talk about The Boys.
The Boys. Oh, yeah.
Go for it, because I haven't seen it yet.
I told you it would be bingeable, didn't I, Juice?
Damn straight. When I should have gone to bed for the parade today, I was up till probably about 2:30 getting through episode 8 and finished the last 2 tonight.
yeah, I finished them pretty much in 2 days myself. It reminds me a little bit of the same way Umbrella Academy hooked me in, because just it was so different and so weird and weirdly believable and scary. I had to get through it all quick.
Yeah, so I haven't finished it yet. I'm halfway through, but what I have seen is absolutely amazing. You're seeing the art. I love seeing the arc with Huey so far, of this kid who doesn't even have a backbone to talk to his boss about a raise, and that's established in like the first 20 minutes. And where I am, he just finished blowing up Translucent, and it's just like seeing him from being the guy who can't make any decisions in his life to, oh, he's making fucking decisions. He's gonna blow the shit out of you.
I think some of the character arcs are pretty great, and I've been reading some threads and whatnot, and a big thing that's been a topic on The Boys is that a sentence that's kind of like a cliche is, they've introduced a bunch of characters that you truly, truly love to hate. And I don't think a show has done it as well as The Boys has with the Seven. Something I really like though is, since the shows or I finished watching the show, I started reading through the comics, and I'm almost on the first volume, and I've just kind of skimmed through a bunch of other stuff. And from what I've noticed is the show has completely adapted all of the characters almost perfectly, but has gone in a very much a different route with the main storyline, kind of fast forwarding through a bunch of small stuff and then pumping the brakes on some other things and stretching them out. So it's like reading two different people's versions of the same story, and it's very interesting. And so, like, an example is that in the first episode, when you have Starlight's altercation with the Deep, it's not the Deep in the comic that she has the altercation with, it's actually Homelander, who's then immediately joined by Black Noir and A-Train to initiate her into the Seven.
Holy fuck.
I love Black Noir's name.
Black.
Black.
I like Black Noir in general. I mean, he doesn't say a word. That helps. But he goes between these bouts of sadistic violence, and then suddenly, and I'm sorry for spoiling it for you guys, episode 8, he sits down at the piano and starts playing a beautiful soliloquy on the piano there. And I was just going, what the fuck?
I think superheroes with a marketing campaign is a disturbing image to see.
Terrifyingly believable.
Yeah, 100%.
And the worst part is I can actually see it happening in real life if we actually had superheroes in real life.
Hello, Vinter.
Hi, Weewick. Careful the airlock door over there.
Are we talking about Spider-Man or Sploder-Man?
We're talking about The Boys.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Hey, Gung.
We would stand in front of that door over there, just over there a little bit more, a little bit more.
A little
Perfect.
more to the left. A little more to the left.
A little more left. All right,
Okay.
perfect. Stay right there.
Okay, I'm staying here.
Okay, before we go any further, I need to ask one thing. Gung, where's my goddamn tuba picture?
Holy shit, man. I still need to mail it.
He hasn't mailed it yet, I told you.
I'll get it out this week, I promise. The check's in the mail.
The check's in the mail, all right. Where were we?
Superheroes and social marketing.
Right.
So something I thought was very unique with the show and the way it was handling supers, and this is a little bit of a spoiler for, I think, around episode 7, is that there are not super villains. And that's kind of why we have these superheroes who are clearly not good people, including members of the Seven, is because they just assume all with superpowers must be good. And the only time we see a super villain is when they show a super showing up in the Middle East, going by the captain,
Right.
as a threat to the U.S. military, as a way to get the supers into the military. It is a ploy. And it's only at that moment they bring to the attention that there are no villains. They're only fighting petty crime.
I also just realized it was really a cliche for them to introduce a super Middle Eastern terrorist.
No, that's the point, though.
It just brings it shows us that we still have these prejudices about who we think are good guys and who we think are bad guys.
So I have a very good point to add on to that, and this is from the in-universe of the TV series, is something that you kind of need to take 2 steps back to think of and realize, is that they've established that superheroes and supes have been showing up since the mid-70s. And an example we saw where Queen Maeve and Homelander show up on the plane to potentially stop the hijackers you have to draw the comparison that chances are 9/11 didn't happen in this universe because there were soups around that might have intervened. And the more thorough proof of that is that after that, the plane crash, the speech Homelander makes on the beach is the speech George Bush famously gave on Ground Zero through a megaphone. Like, it is almost word for word the exact same speech he gave to pump the Americans up on the war on terror. It's exactly what happened. Is we've now had a threat that, you know, it was targeted Americans from a foreign land. It's the exact same ploy that ended us with the Patriot, is getting soups now on the plane or in the military, right? So let's make a threat in the Middle East. It was completely calculated on Homelander's part. It's completely fucked.
That plane scene was fucking amazing. I mean, just to show what a complete bastard Homelander is, but like just the mounting panic of the people who knew they were going to die, that this guy, despite all his smiling and it's going to be okay, he's going to let them fucking die. And then he turns on them, laser eyes, scares the shit out of them. But I just found that whole scene so fucking chilling, but so good.
And if you noticed, I don't know if anyone did, as Homelander and Maeve are just floating in the air watching the plane go down, off in the distance, you see this little dot fall out of the plane and into the ocean, which parallels 9/11 when some people actually jumped 100 floors off to try and escape the fire.
And, you know, as bad as Homelander is, I really dislike Queen Maeve because she's obviously torn and conflicted, but she doesn't actually do anything. You know, she's just, you know, well, this is the way it is, and you better suck it up. And you know, like, she's just, I find her so dislikable.
I think she's just seen it all and has just given up. You can tell she's defeated. She just doesn't give a shit anymore.
And I think the worst part about that plane scene is it's not even Homelander showing that he's truly like this evil, wicked person. It's also realistically showing what would happen in a situation like that with superheroes run by the government and run by corporations. It's like, you can't, if you can't save everyone, save nobody. Like, it's bad press. No one's going to talk about the 10 people you saved if 90 people die. Like, it's fucking horrible, but like, realistically, that is the kind of decisions these big businesses make. Bad press is bad press, avoided at all costs.
Another thing that I don't know if it scared me, but it gave me a little heebie-jeebie was episode. I'm just looking here. Episode 5, Good for the Soul. That Believe Expo. I hate to say this. I've seen that.
Oh, yeah.
And that is complete what was happening. What was happening during that, the crowd reactions and the entertainment and everything that was happening there. That is totally fucking believable because I know people who have done that, and I've seen a bit of it myself. It creeps me out slightly.
So we've been talking about the supers so far. What do you guys think of the actual boys, like Frenchie and Mother's Milk?
I think the casting's great. I mean, I feel like the characters are almost like they feel identical to what I'm reading in the comics. And their dynamic works well. And I mean, Carl Urban is just like somehow the perfect butcher. It's weird. I love it. I mean, I would not surprised, but it's still kind of crazy because it's like perfect casting.
When Mother's Milk and Frenchie met each other and their characters, you know, don't like each other, the way, I mean, credit to the actors, they really looked like they wanted to tear each other apart. I love that. So I haven't checked the comics out yet, Vander, but there's a big Simon Pegg connection apparently, which is why he's in the show.
Yes. So Huey is actually drawn based on Simon Pegg, and Huey's actually a Scottish character. The comic starts with him in Scotland at the fair with his girlfriend, who then is completely blown up by A-Train fighting a super villain. He kind of throws her through him, and that's when Butcher shows up and picks him up. But like, even though this book starts in Scotland, he's in America on like page 10. Like it's just they spend no time there, but it is 100% a spitting image of Simon Pegg to the point with that the first collection of it, volume 1, which collects the first 6 issues, has a foreword by Simon Pegg talking about how he found out that this comic existed because he had previously read Garth Ennis's work and obviously was a big comic fan himself, to find out that there's a comic with him in it. And so when they were adapting the show, they were like, he wanted in, and they wanted him in it, but obviously he was too old to play Huey at this point. And then that's just it. It's kind of cool, and it's very fucking weird to just see Simon Pegg's face in every other panel of the story.
So was it, I don't know if it was Garth Ennis or somebody else said about the show that they were going to out Preacher in the terms of violence and full-on gore.
I've heard that.
That was what he wrote the first issues to be, and it's very clear that was his goal. I think within the first 4 pages, you have Butcher just like viciously fucking someone. You have what's her face blown up by A Train. You then have Butcher has a bulldog just fucking another dog. And then you have the orgy sex scenes of the supers, and then Butcher's fucking another person. Like, it is very graphic.
The 2 parts that killed me were Pop Claw and the Landlord. And the dolphin. That was the one part of the show when what happened to the dolphin, and then the thing that happened to the dolphin. After that, in terms of splattery, I actually went, holy fuck! Like, I actually shouted out loud when I saw it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah.
When I saw the dolphin start to go forward when he hit the brakes, I just realized, shit, this thing is gonna die. I had to turn away because I couldn't watch.
And then it gets worse.
Yeah.
I know. Even the lobster in episode 8, I just, really?
I felt bad for that lobster.
I did too. I'll never look at a lobster the same way again.
So what I think is interesting, though, is that while the Deep is this awful misogynistic prick, he does truly care for sea animals, and he does try his best to save them. But every time he does, he absolutely fails, and he's really, really bad at it. But the other thing I kind of enjoy in a weird way is that I'm not sympathizing for the character. I am not like saying like, oh, okay, like I guess that's fine. But you can definitely draw the parallels of he is the way he is with humans in this misogynistic way based on his interactions with the sea life, because they seem to be very forward and aggressive with him in a sexual nature. Like that dolphin is like in that conversation he has is like essentially like verbally assaulting him to do sexual things, and even the lobster to a certain extent. And I was reading some threads on Reddit, and there were suggestions like, well, think of it like everyone makes fun of the Deep in real life, that the only people who probably were communicating with him were sea animals, and sea animals probably like took advantage of him drastically as a child and into his adulthood. Like he probably got molested by sea creatures.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
Very weird to think of. And that's kind of like the idea of having an abusive father may lead to you being an abusive in the future. It's kind of that parallel. And it's like, I don't forgive him in any way, but it's like, that's fucked.
I will say, somehow, somewhere in the future, I'm going to use the Spice Girls analogy that Butcher used to try and get his guys back together. That was fucking amazing.
Spice Girl metaphor is really good. It made perfect sense.
Somewhere I will try and use that.
It's a good metaphor for Flinns, actually.
It is, isn't it?
Bitch, I'm beautiful.
What spice would you be, Vander?
That is a self-indulgent question I will not answer.
You can make up a spice.
Sporty.
Dude's just like, I claim sporty.
I feel like Vander would be posh just because of his beautiful fashion choices.
So apparently they greenlit season 2 even before season 1 came out. So they were probably figuring this was going to be a massive hit. And it's scary the kind of foresight these guys had about.
Well, I've heard that they've already started filming last week because I've been seeing leaked photos in Toronto of like Voight fans around at filming locations.
So I have a question, and again, this will spoil it, so I apologize in advance.
Cover your ears.
With the death of Homelander's day-to-day, the VP there, I'm wondering who they're going to put in her place to continue that antagonistic relationship, because I haven't read the comics, but I did read some stuff on it, and apparently that character in the comics lasts the entire series.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Whereas this, it's pretty much its unique storyline with the same character. So like not many people are completely sure where the story is going to go. They have some ideas based off things that happen in the comics, but like at this point, it's kind of up to the showrunner to do what they want with it. But I mean, I definitely see what's that character's name? Yeah, and so in the final episode, we finally get to see Edgar in the flesh, and I won't say who it is, just because it is a good moment to see. But I will say is you do not bring that person in for a fucking 5-minute cameo.
He's not a cameo guy.
You bring him in for a full character arc, and so I feel we'll definitely have him as very much an antagonistic threat in season 2. But I also have a feeling that like Homelander is going to kind of take on this hybrid weird protagonist but very much antagonist character in the second season, because his allegiances are truly in question at this point, and it'll be weird to see him return to Voight and be with the Seven.
I was delighted to see that actor show up. I was like, yeah.
I was too. I mean, I haven't seen the show where he was a integral part of it, but I know his reputation, and
Really?
I was very impressed. No, I haven't seen it. Honest to God, I'm one of those people that just hasn't seen it.
I could spend a whole podcast just talking about that show.
Oh God, that's like 7 or 8 seasons. Please don't make me try and go through that whole thing
get to
in a
work.
week. Oh jeez.
It's like 4 and 1 long.
You know what?
It is one of the better shows in the last 2 decades, probably.
You know what? This podcast is going to make me start catching up on a whole lot of TV I have not watched. Interesting tidbit, and I didn't realize this. One of the executive producers of this thing is Seth Rogen.
Yep, him and was it Evan Goldberg? They're the two who brought Preacher to the screen, which is another Garth Ennis project. They like I said, they had great luck with Preacher, and they're huge fans of The Boys and Preacher. So as soon as they were able to get Preacher off the ground over at FX, they wanted to try The Boys, and Amazon was willing. HBO passed on The Boys because they felt it was too graphic. They thought there was no way they could.
Too graphic for HBO? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's what you get when you get Uber nerds with shit tons of money wanting to do their stuff. So bring it on.
Yeah, and there was an AMA the other day with the showrunner, and supposedly there is only one fight they lost. They say to Amazon. They had like it's supposed to be in like episode 2, after Homelander kind of gets disciplined by Stillwell. There's a scene of him on top of one of like the gargoyles of the Chrysler building in New York, and he just takes his pants down and just starts masturbating vigorously and saying, I can do whatever I want, no one can stop me, and then he just finishes all over New York.
Oh my God! That's amazing.
That was the line, apparently.
That is the line that they couldn't cross.
Well, I'm spent. I guess it's time to end. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, it's @ClanFlynn. And if you'd like to become a supporter of this podcast, join us on Patreon /VincerFlynn. See you guys next week.